Welcome to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio and the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them.
Welcome and thank you for joining the Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV. I'm Yvette Walker, live blasting our signal from the center of Southern California, serving a population of over 25 million. Get us crystal clear and on demand by downloading the free live streaming app on Google Play or the Apple App Store. As always, a huge shout out to the team, Mitch, Bill, and Sean. I love you guys, and to our special advisory committee, Bill Morris, UCI School of Business, Jose and Camila Rubio. Thank you so much. Today, I am so excited and thrilled to be introducing Alston and Brienne Ghafourifar, a brother and sister duo who are co-founders of Entefy, a platform aimed at providing streamlined solutions with a focus on global sourcing, supply chain, and blockchain landscape with integrated AI technology. Alston holds 34 patents awarded by the USPTO and serves as the lead inventor on Entefy's intellectual property portfolio, covering a number of technical fields, including AI, communication, search, blockchain, cybersecurity, and data privacy. Brienne leads products and operations at Entefy, setting a world record at the age of 17 as the youngest college graduate to raise $1 million in venture funding. That figure has since grown to more than $25 million. Brienne and her brother Alston co-founded Entefy, an AI software and automation company, after investing over 250,000 hours in advanced R&D, with more than 100 scientists and engineers contributing to its AI platform. Entefy is serving enterprise customers across a number of industries, including financial services, healthcare, retail, and manufacturing. Entefy's customers vary in size from SMEs to $100 billion plus US and global public companies. Brienne is also a published inventor with 12 patents awarded by the USPTO and a key contributor to Entefy's IP portfolio. She has been covered by international media, including Fast Company, CNN Money, Forbes, NBC, and the Huffington Post. Thank you both so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Yvette. We're glad to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So I was so happy and thrilled to hear that you were a brother and sister duo. And I know one of my first questions to you was, are you twins? Right? Because, you guys pair so well and you're in the same industry and you're both pursuing the same goals. Alston with 33 patents and Brienne with 12. Is there some type of healthy sibling competition going on here, Brienne?
I love it. Well, Alston and I, in addition to being siblings, we are best friends. We get along really well. Our skills are very complementary. And it's really important when you're starting a company and running a company that you surround yourselves with people that you really trust. And Alston and I, we have that really strong relationship, and we have a very compatible skill set as well. So when it comes to growing the company, growing the support system around us, running day-to-day operations and building the business, that's all you could ever ask for as a founder. So I love working with him. It's a best opportunity one could wish for in starting a business.
Absolutely. What about you, Alston? My understanding is you are the older brother and you pretty much spearheaded Entefy while your sister Brienne was raising and breaking records by raising $1 million for funding. Please talk about that experience.
Absolutely, yes. So I am the older brother, and I can tell you when it comes to the healthy forms of competition, there's nothing more motivating than having an absolute dynamo of a younger sibling who's able to do some amazing work. So we're very fortunate. We have an excellent relationship, and we've been partners in Entefy since the very beginning. And as you mentioned, for the very first period, while the team was going out raising capital, Brienne and I had to split duties. We were able to operate the organization while growing in other areas. So it's been absolutely fantastic so far, and we continue to look into the future equally as committed to Entefy as we were when we first started the company.
Absolutely. So please talk a little bit about what even inspired you to pursue the platform of technology and integration of systems and adding AI on top of it? Because there's a whole story behind this.
There is, there is. So our history starts in an area we called universal communications. So communication and collaboration, and it really was rooted out of the idea that more effective ways for people to communicate and share information enables greater productivity, greater rates of innovation, and this is true for consumers. It's also true for businesses, and we've seen that with the software and the internet revolutions, taking as the most recent internet mobility is the most recent big communication related S curves, being able to really transform how we interact, and that leading to massive changes in individual productivity, right? So it started rooted kind of there, and that morphed and evolved, and we created the world's first universal communicator, which was a single unified application that was able to interoperate communication channels across protocols and services, especially at the time where we were growing, where social products were booming, communication chat products were booming. We needed a place to kind of bring all that together as a centralized hub that people could use to communicate, even if they weren't on the same network. And as it turned out, the core technology we developed to actually make that work, which is still a first of its kind, became the Mimi AI platform. It was a personalized intelligence system that was able to learn from individual behavior and patterns to interoperate across protocols and services. And that's what has morphed into the enterprise AI system that we now know as Mimi today.
Wonderful. So, Brienne, can you walk us through, a brief history of AI technology, what it was developed to do, and why it is you have decided to integrate that into your platforms?
Absolutely. I mean, there's some discussion in this space, right, about how AI evolves and grows and what role it has as humans also are growing and our skill sets are changing. From our perspective, it's all about an augmentation to human skills, right? It's not taking over all of our jobs. It's augmenting our jobs and saving our time so we can do the things that we do best. Right? Humans have very specific skill sets, and those skill sets change over time. But leveraging machines and machine intelligence to help save our time so we can better use it in areas that we excel at is really where the opportunity is. So, from an AI perspective, we leverage AI augmentation in the technology in the form of creating AI software for enterprise. So, anytime there are overly manual or overly error prone use cases or things that could be automated but are done with humans today, we can leverage machine intelligence and software applications to either help humans do that more efficiently with less error, better accuracy, create cost savings or time savings, or the machine can actually do it on its own. So it's all about augmenting human hours and human intelligence versus replacing it. This is a little bit how we see it becoming a complement to our daily life. It's a little bit like, I'll just use the analogy, and some of the audience may be super familiar, others may not, but it's the Jarvis of Iron Man in your pocket for free with no ads. This is the holy grail of where AI plays a role in technology, right? If you do your job really right. So it's very important that it's used properly and it's in the right hands and it grows correctly and the learning is there and the privacy is there. So this is kind of what we envision for the future. And we're leveraging the early opportunities with enterprise products that eventually get to end consumer.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to discuss today, right? Is how to leverage that to enhance, humans' quality of life, how to be more efficient, and how to benefit from, the streamline efforts that this AI technology can overcome with our limited human capabilities. And I know the discussion started in the supply chain, right? And, product development and channeling and navigating that blockchain and logistics, what has become a nightmare, right? As we have come to learn in the past couple of years. And so the AI that you have integrated with your technology and the platform alongside Mimi is to me so exciting. So I'll let you, please, I don't want to steal your thunder, but please talk about the ways that you have found that this AI is assisting in those efforts when we're talking about the supply chain, the global logistics landscape,
Absolutely.
and how it is that, the magic occurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a stab at it, and then I'm sure Brianna has additional comments she'll add on top of this. But I think that it's artificial intelligence is all about, as Brienne said, augmenting human power, right? Allowing machines to do jobs that were traditionally reserved for individuals. And many of those jobs aren't things that humans should spend their time doing, or they're not things that we're perfectly suited to doing. So in
Right.
supply chain and logistics, it's one of those areas that is absolutely fraught with just an immeasurable number of areas that's well suited for this type of technology, right?
Right.
Whether it's forecasting demand, predicting inventory levels, optimizing delivery routes, right? These have economic consequences, they have ecological consequences, and they have just physical productivity consequences. Global GDP gets directly affected by our ability to produce goods at faster, at lower cost, with less impact, right? So
Right.
without AI, those efforts end up squeezing labor markets and resource markets. With AI, they can be entirely new for
Let me just jump in real quick, Yvette, on this one, because there's a couple areas where AI can augment a human capability when it comes to, let's say, individual home patient care, right? Individual health records.
Right.
Right now, as people, we are accessing our health records in so many different places, different doctors, different systems, all of the above, right? And we're relying on ourselves and our providers to guide us on next steps or to analyze or to centralize the information. There's really no single source where we can be able to access the data and gain recommendations or analysis on any of the information that's being stored. This is not just unique to healthcare as an industry, but it's a common theme of general lack of centralization of data.
Right.
And when you have lack of centralization and consolidation, you have less opportunities to create insights and recommendations and leverage AI to augment those human capabilities. So that's one example. Other things we do in our daily life, trading, right? Stock trading, crypto trading, all these different things that when you leverage machines, they can work overnight for you, right? They can watch the trends, they can make the trades by learning from their systems and creating predictions. Certain things that without AI you would be doing manually and you'd be spending a lot of time on. But this is one instance where you could leverage AI augmentation to do that for you.
Right. So, walk us through what the old system looks like, right? The human system of navigating, let's say, a supply chain environment, of creating a product and getting it from point A to point B versus what the technology that you have created is able to achieve.
Absolutely. So there's a few examples of this, and I apologize. I don't know where I got cut off previously. Hopefully, my internet stays exactly as it is now, and
Yes.
hopefully you guys can hear me. Where I was just going with that previously was that you have certain areas like, for example, pricing optimization, tooling management, and manufacturing line production, right? So these are cases that exist across any given industry in terms of production in the supply chain. So whether you're making semiconductor equipment or you're manufacturing, shoes or steel parts for automotive industry, you all wrestle with these. They all wrestle with these same problems. So AI, what we've developed is certain Mimi capabilities, and you'll hear us refer to Mimi capabilities a lot. She's just part of us now. We developed Mimi capabilities to really look at patterns and trends in both structured and unstructured data. And one of the unique things about what Mimi does versus a lot of traditional AI or machine learning based solutions or products is that she natively is able to handle a lot of diversity in the data that she sees. And enterprises are filled with data diversity. In many ways, even the simplest business processes can be aggregations of a lot of different types of information, some of which is very well structured, generated by machines for machines, and some of which is generated and managed by humans to make decisions. Mimi can combine both of those together to make more accurate predictions. So I'll give you an example. In semiconductor manufacturing, you have equipment tooling processes where a wafer, which is the ultimate, part of the chip that gets cut out of the wafer, right? The die at the end goes through a whole number of steps, and their precision is absolutely key, and yield is extremely important. And entire huge factories are dedicated to just extreme precision processes throughout that process. Just diagnosing failure I mean, let's just talk about that for a second. You have machines that are moving and they produce these chips. And if you're off by sometimes nanometers in certain areas, you can have a defective wafer, all right, or defective die. Just diagnosing which tool in what stage has drifted enough to now be out of band is something that traditionally has been done largely by individuals, largely by humans, right? It's easier in some areas than others, but it's largely done by humans because you'll expect defects. Defects are fine, but systematic defects are not. And that's where you need machine intelligence, like computer vision, to translate these wafers into imagery that can detect patterns so you can look at thousands of wafers and not one at a time. It looks at areas of classic machine learning where you can take the signal from just one tooling machine, like a heartbeat almost, and just look for those patterns. A similar technique that's used to deal with atrial fibrillation in healthcare, right? Where you look at heartbeats and it's the patterns itself that tell you whether you're going to have AFib or things like that. So when from our lens, we see a lot of commonality. Everybody working in these industries sees something very narrow, very specific, right? And to some extent, that's very true. All these industries are unique, right? You can't just take an expert from one, plop them into another, and all of a sudden it works. But from an AI and machine learning perspective, there's a whole host of use cases, an entire domain dedicated to these cross-functional areas. And that's where Mimi really excels. The more diversity in the data that she sees, the more she's able to apply learning from one type of use case into another. And that's what a lot of big enterprises really need right now, because an enterprise, no matter what their industry is like an island nation in and of itself. They need everything, right? The specifics may vary, but they need it all. And that's why kind of the multi-sensory focus of Mimi in particular was designed specifically for that. But just AI in general is very conducive.
Very nice. So in the case of the AI technology being applied to, the blockchain, the supply chain environment, please, to compare and contrast, talk about, the traditional method of getting a product from point A to point B in the traditional sense versus how efficient and how streamlined Mimi can assist with these efforts.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's a good example. So blockchains are now used in the supply chain. Some companies are starting to implement blockchains to create a chain of custody, full auditable transaction records, right? Things where you could have full data integrity to know how things are moving through the pipeline, whether they're digital assets or physical assets, right? And of course, whenever we hear blockchain, most of us think of the most popular use of blockchain, which is cryptocurrency, and from there, Bitcoin. But the core blockchain technology has become a very cool use case, a very cool enablement, I should say, for supply chains, because they create full auditable chain of custody. So from there, you can leverage with blockchain this concept of smart contracts in the use cases where it works. Smart contracts allow these blockchain systems to act in a way autonomously. And linear smart contracts, which are fundamentally rules-based systems, are only going to be as limited as the software and rules that we use for those, right? Everybody can write software, since as long as software's been around, if this, then that. The kind of smart contracts I'm talking about are the kind that are AI enabled, where artificial intelligence and machine learning can be used to dynamically allocate and reallocate rules into the system. So it provides a very traditionally rigid technology, which is blockchain. It's extremely rigid, and that's part of its benefit, with a boost of kind of intelligent dynamism, right? That's able to now allow it to adapt to use cases. So an example of this in practice would be in understanding, let's say, digital asset management for, let's say, inventory control across garment manufacturing in different warehouses, right? So understanding chain of custody from individual supplier raw material to the factories that make that raw material, to then the factories that produce the garment, to then the warehouses that distribute it, and so on. There are so many steps in that chain. You not only is it very difficult to track where everything goes from, that's where blockchain comes in. How do you audit the entire trail? But now from there, how do you optimize that entire trail? And that's where AI comes in. So using these technologies together provides an entirely new benefit. And that's just one of 1,000 examples. We can name, literally you can throw a dart, any industry that deals with kind of pipelines, right? Chains of events, you can have this similar dynamic.
Absolutely. And so in our discussions, I shared with you that in my beginning of my career, one of the things that I did was product development, right? So it was manufacturing, it was distribution, it was logistics, it was the whole 9 yards. And it was a little bit of a simpler world back then. And now, there are so many moving parts. We have geopolitical issues, we have sanctions, we have natural disasters, we have a lot of things that are impacting those supply chains and the fluidity of it, right? And so when I heard about this technology and how basically it's designed to untangle all of those different dynamics and those barriers and those question marks, and not only identify it, but then start to anticipate and create and identify a pattern moving forward based on whatever criteria you're plugging in. If you're looking to find, raw materials provided by people that are more environmentally aware or meet a certain threshold for, sustainable efforts, then that's something that you can, program into the AI or identify as well. And so I just could not believe how much time all of this could spend. Please talk a little bit about the response that, you've been getting from those that see what this technology can do.
I was just going to say really quick, let's not forget also about traceability, right? This is becoming a huge area, and you could just kind of mentioned it briefly. But we're getting a lot of interest in some of these areas because during the pandemic, also this scale and magnitude of some of these problems just kind of exploded, right? So it's just such an interesting field. And research shows that many people are now interested in how things are made, right? And the entire process, all the way from raw material to how they end up on the shelf or how they delivered. So much so that it's actually impacting the purchase decision, right, for the end consumer in a pretty fundamental way. And we're actually willing to pay more for something that's more sustainable or sourced properly and ethically. So this is becoming such a big deal. And companies, I think, are taking it very seriously because they have to. And then also, morally and ethically, they need to as well. So there's a double impact there, and we want to support those initiatives, and we are supporting those initiatives. So we shouldn't take it lightly. And I think AI and automation can have a very big role there, and it's already coming into those industries. And the impact is just saving the human time that would have otherwise been a manual process, right? Because if you really think about it, doing a lot of those pieces that Alston mentioned manually, it's error prone. It's so time consuming. It's unfeasible for organizations to spend so much time and money to do that without having complete certainty. It's a real challenge. So we have a lot of excitement about that space in particular.
Not to interrupt you, Brienne, but even we can give you an actual example of like the kind of time savings that you get, right? So let's say you have a product, let's say in pharmaceutical drug development, right? Which again is fundamentally, it's a manufacturing process, right? Change the nuts and bolts, change where the raw materials come from, change the actual machinery used, and it's a manufacturing process. In that process, quality management is extremely important. So you obviously, and it's even more important in pharmaceuticals than in many other areas, right? You can't just have a bad pill and say, oops, my bad, here's a refund, right? It's a highly, highly necessary and regulated set of work. And it's extremely time intensive. And the kind of people who are tasked with doing quality control management, investigating all the minor defects or problems, whatever they may be, are not, just random individuals. These are trained staff, often scientists and researchers, right, who are designed to go through a process. So it's expensive labor, right? It's limited labor, meaning it's scarce labor, and it's highly regulated. So one of the things that the FDA would look for example, just in the United States, right? One of the things that the FDA would look for is this concept of recurrence, right? Recurrence is when mostly the same process happens again, the same problem exists another time, right? And the FDA really doesn't like that for obvious reasons. Nobody likes it. So pharmaceutical companies have to spend very special attention to make sure that they can identify when a problem is a recurrence. Now, a recurrence is hard to identify in many cases. First, you have to understand that the problem happened. Then you have to know why it happened. Then you have to assess whether or not the reason it happened is fundamentally connected to this other reason that happened before, right? And it's a very difficult process. And in some cases, just to summarize this for those listening, in some cases, that process can take 1 to 2 man-months of research time. right? Investigation
Wow.
time, talking to the stakeholders, looking at the machines, identifying the issues, right? It varies, but it's not uncommon for it to take man months. Well,
To identify the
yeah,
one issue.
exactly. Specifically, even just to answer like those specific questions confidently, right? Because we can all sit here, say as a problem, say, I'm pretty sure this was no. The FTBA requires you to actually be
Right.
correct, right? And go through the process
Exact.
to
Right.
classify that problem. How did it, like, what was the issue? There are different categories, right? Is it a man-made problem? Is it a material problem, et cetera? They're FTI specific. So in that, can take man months. Mimi technology can answer questions like that in a matter of milliseconds, right? So then you can take that time to now just double check and audit instead of performing massive amounts of complex research. So that's just one very small example.
Thank you so much for that. All right, we're going to go to break now. All right, for those listening, I'm Yvette Walker on Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV, talking with Alston and Brienne Ghafourifar, a brother-sister duo heading Entefy, an advanced AI software and automation company with integrated multisensory AI technology, focusing the discussion on supply chain and medical applications when we return.
City of Hope is driven to making a difference in the lives of people with cancer and diabetes. We accomplish this by conducting innovative research and providing outstanding care. If you or a loved one has received a cancer diagnosis, go to cityofhope.org to learn more about how our innovative approach could change your outcome.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs a blood transfusion. Be on the giving side. Livestream Blood Bank supports patients in 80 Southern California hospitals. Call 1-800-TRY-GIVING for more information and to set an appointment.
Hi, Ray Lance from the Diamond Center in the Claremont Village here. One of the coolest parts of a third-generation family business is getting to know the families we serve through generations. Once you experience our friendly service, our fair and transparent pricing, and our beautiful jewelry that we make to last a lifetime, you'll stick with us too. Come visit us in the Claremont Village or at Lantz, L-A-N-T-Z, diamondcenter.com and see what makes us different.
Ontario International Airport is onto a better way to fly with over 65 daily nonstop flights to more than 20 major destinations and the easiest airport experience in Southern California. Visit flyonto.com/Ontario to learn more about Ontario International Airport today.
Hi, I'm San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dykes. If you're looking to start an exciting career in law enforcement and make a difference in your community, we are hiring dispatchers, nurses, deputies, laterals, and many more. For a complete list of our jobs and more information, visit sheriffsjobs.com.
The University of La Verne is rated first in California for alumni satisfaction. Learn more about accelerated programs offered online and on campus in La Verne, Irvine, Ontario, Burbank, or College of the Canyons. Visit go.laverne.edu. The University of La Verne. go.laverne.edu.
Cal State San Bernardino is home to the only School of Entrepreneurship in California. With globally ranked degree programs, you can start your journey today to become a successful entrepreneur. Learn more and connect at entre.csusb.edu.
Welcome back. For those listening, I'm Yvette Walker on Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV, talking with Alston and Brienne Ghafourifar, a brother-sister duo heading Entefy, an advanced AI software and automation company with integrated multisensory AI technology, focusing the discussion on supply chain and medical field applications. Thank you again for being with us today, Brienne and Alston.
Thank you, Yvette.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Perfect. So prior to the break, you were talking about the efficiency of AI and how it would take, man hours, basically 1 month to detect a recurring failure within a system versus milliseconds using Mimi, right?
Sure.
And so that brings us to the discussion of the benefits and the cost savings that this advanced, streamlined technology can transfer, to the consumer. Please talk a little bit about what you see in that arena, Brienne, and please share your thoughts as well afterwards, Alston.
Absolutely. I mean, in many cases, AI applications are designed to save people time. I think where we spend the most of our time is we prioritize state-of-the-art models, bringing them all the way through to production so they can get into end applications that business users can utilize on a day-to-day basis. Basically help save people time so they can live and work better. That's our mission at Entefy. So eventually, when you get up to a certain use case that can be so impactful within an organization, you can be saving millions or hundreds of millions of dollars by just putting in an automation use case or creating an intelligent application for your company, whether it's outward to their customers or outward to their employees. Things like knowledge management use cases, things like simple search use cases, things like data consolidation and analysis use cases. There's so many different applications and ways to use AI as a way to save people time. But Alston, I'm sure you have additional thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you some actual examples. Again, the actual kind of what we call the ROI, right? The return on investment can vary dramatically between not only the size of company and the size of market they serve, but also just industry in general. But let's take some big scale ones, right? Let's take, large global banks. Artificial intelligence or machine learning that's used just to identify process efficiency across, let's say, 10 to 20,000 employees that perform a similar function, right? Let's just say, imagine a big global bank and you're dealing lending optimization. Forget about the actual lending decision making, which systems like Mimi can also automate and learn and make, in many ways, better lending decisions on a large portfolio. But let's just talk about identifying baseline performance and then doing comparisons of that for real individuals who are doing the physical work in lending. At a big global bank, you could be looking at hundreds of millions of dollars a year just in that singular function, right? It's mind-boggling because whenever you have large amounts of people, right, that people comes with headcount. So you think about just the efficiency on that, either applying that headcount to other things, or freeing up that headcount to now focus on other areas that can meet the customer. So if lending decision making, for example, costs less, right, then that means the number of points, the prices, the overall apparatus around lending delivery to the end borrower is going to cost less, right? Which means it'll happen faster and it'll be at preferential terms. So that's just one small example. You could take the exact same equation in medical. You talked about medical use cases, drug trials. The biggest cost, the reason pharmaceuticals cost so much for each of us isn't because like a pill takes a lot to manufacture. It does in many cases. It's a non-trivial process. I don't want to minimize it, but it's often to recoup the massive R&D cost that goes into, sometimes billions of dollars that goes into producing the drug, right? It has to amortize over a period of time. It's a R&D expense heavy operation. So now if you consider that AI drug discovery is being used today, it's being gradually rolled out and becoming more and more popular to target chemical reactions and specific sequencing before they move to trials. Now, all of a sudden, if you can reduce the number of trials you make because you can predict the outcome better by having smarter machine learning systems that are able to understand and analyze side effects and other effects, right? Or that are able to better target which percentage of the population may react positively or negatively to a drug. Well, all of a sudden, you can save, in some cases, $1 billion, billions of dollars, right? Just in a single drug manufacturing pipeline. So the cost savings really just magnifies all across the board. And even small organizations can benefit from it too, because ultimately it just fractionalizes down. And the question just comes down to, does your business process have enough movement in it to warrant a lot of efficiency? Right? If you have one or two employees doing a job, that may not be the right place to focus. But if you have, a significant portion of your company's staff, you could have dozens or hundreds of people doing a singular function. Now that becomes very interesting as a target area to help give them the tools to perform better.
Right. And so I like the way, you described Mimi in terms of aggregating, general data and also, categorized data. I hope I'm using the terms properly, but,
We call it structured and unstructured. data.
Structured and unstructured data, yes. And so I like how the opportunity to apply it in a pharmaceutical environment or in a medical environment when you're talking about all of these different factors and people's lives, right? And you're trying to eliminate that that margin of error, which can cost people lives or billions of dollars in R&D for manufacturing of drugs and medicines to treat, human conditions and illnesses. And I love the possibility that AI can, examine this and possibly offer, alternative solutions or additional solutions to those that, people would likely offer. And you said it when you talked about how AI can identify, those side effects and how certain populations may respond or react to certain ingredients within the manufacturing of the drug, which, it just kind of, to me, it touches on that whole pharmacogenomics thing where it basically indicates that there are 12 major genetic, fields that people fall under where drugs have been manufactured to, identify and treat those 12 main categories of, humanity, basically genetic codes throughout the world. So I'm curious, is that something that Mimi or AI has been used for recently or looking at in terms of these formulations and these prospects in the drug landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, artificial. So again, Mimi as a multisensory technology utilizes a lot of capabilities that can apply to many different things, right? But I'll give you one based on what you just said. It just reminded me of one right now where you're talking about drug interactions. Like fundamentally, right? Even when you analyze genomics for drug success, drug interactions is a huge, huge part of why people go through multiple phases of trials and so on, because you want to know and you need to describe, right? If, do not take, ibuprofen with this or whatever it may be. And part of that comes down to just massive number crunching. I mean, if we just take it at its kind of its most basic level, let's just say a computer assisted systems to advise researchers on drug interaction, right? And negative side effects. That's something that is getting more and more complex as more and more drugs exist and more we begin to understand the genome, right? At some point, that becomes not a numbers problem, it becomes an intelligence problem. So there are a lot of technical problems in, let's say, quote unquote, kind of the AI machine learning landscape that fundamentally are very close to traditional data analytics and large amounts of number crunching. I'm setting those aside. I'm talking about the stuff that actually needs self-learning systems, right? The kind of thing where you deploy it and it gets smarter every single day. That's where complex drug interaction modeling comes in. Complex chemical compound management comes in, right? Where it's you don't have enough sand on the world's beaches, Yvette, to make enough chips to process every possible combination of the drug, right? So then you now have to have, if I can't analyze everything, if it's not a pure big data problem, now I have to make decisions as to what subsamples of data do I look at and where are you going to get that information? Currently only from extremely skilled labor. And that's hard to scale. As the world gets bigger and the need gets bigger, the investment in skilled labor gets more and more expensive, right? So that's where we see the AI coming in as opportunity. Go ahead.
A cross-industry problem too, right? One of the things we love about AI and the way that we build AI software is that it's industry agnostic, right? It's endlessly applicable. If you think of any department, any company, any industry, you just kind of throw a dart and think about the ways AI can improve that domain. It's a little bit from a paradigm shift perspective. It reminds me of, right, the internet, right? What was our day like before the web was around, before the internet was here? We couldn't have even had this broadcast, right? So when you think about time savings and cost savings, those are the kind of efficiencies that come to mind. Of course, privacy becomes important, right? Efficient use becomes important. Training and models, all of this becomes an important consideration, but done well, that's exactly what it is on a much broader scale, right? And on a consumer level, many of us are struggling so much with information overload, right? The digital universe has been expanding exponentially over the past decade. So merely keeping up with the news, emails, entertainment content, right? All of this stuff is what our daily life looks like. So it's a daunting task just thinking about what we're facing every day when it comes to information overload. So with AI, you can think about a lot more personalization and simplification in our future as it becomes more prominent, as it gets implemented, as more companies start to use it. So it's becoming its own paradigm. And today we're just at the early phases of that. It's nowhere near what it's going to be. And again, done right is the important piece there, right? Ethical AI, properly trained intelligence. So as long as there's digital data out there and people are using that data to get through processes and workflows every day in their life, personal and professional, then we can imagine using machine intelligence to help improve, right? Whether it's cost savings or time savings or all of the above.
Absolutely. And so that brings me to my next question, which is, the IP rights of that data. How does that work? Is that something that Entefy manages and owns? Is that something the client manages and owns? Please, talk about that dynamic as well.
Absolutely. Brienne, I'll jump in on this one. It's a great question. And it's a very important question. And to some extent, it's actually an evolving target industry-wide. But when it comes from our lens, we think that data ownership should always reside with the originator, right? So enterprises, they own their data, and consumers, they own their data. Just because they want to use systems like Mimi or others to create value out of that data doesn't mean they should automatically surrender ownership of that information to companies like Entefy. So we firmly believe the data rights stay with the end user, whether it's an enterprise or a consumer. Learning, however, is a much more difficult one, right? So as Mimi learns, there are parts of Mimi that she'll just learn like an employee would. An employee would learn skills. But then there are parts of that which you can only learn on that information, and that's where the data rights stay with the others. I apologize. I think I may have cut you off. I think you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I was just I thought you were done with your thought, but I just wanted to touch on where that data was hosted. Is that data is hosted on an external server provided by Entefy, or is it hosted on a server provided by the client?
So Entefy customers have an option. They can do it on their own premises within their control, or they can host them within Entefy's private infrastructure. And we're unique. We have what we call a single tenant private cloud infrastructure. So no two customers share the same compute and virtualization stack, which means that you'll never actually have service or data cross-pollination, which is a huge thing for a lot of companies, especially those who have highly sensitive material, whether it's consumer related or intellectual property related. But that's ultimately up to the customer. If they want to host themselves, they can. If they want to host it in third parties and pipe that into Entefy, they can. We can integrate however they like.
And
Lovely. And yes.
One thing I was going to say that real quick, that also mentioned what we have this 5-layer platform. When it comes to ways to consume Entefy, there's many different companies that you throw a dart and they do AI, right? Or they create models. There's a lot of open source stuff there too. But we have this 5-layer platform that creates a lot of flexibility on how somebody can consume AI software from Entefy. If they have their own, applications, but not their own models, they can consume us that way. If they have their own infrastructure and they don't want to use ours, they can consume us without the infrastructural layer, right? So everything from infrastructure to data, to the models, to the back end, to the front end, every layer has its own flexibility, and every enterprise has different configurations and different requirements, different compliance, right? So what we found early on is while our vision for digital transformation is really strong, every company has a different way that they can go execute on that vision for themselves. So we wanted to create ultimate flexibility for our customers. And that's where we give total flexibility in all those pieces to be able to consume us however they like. And infrastructure, like you mentioned, is just one, right? It was a challenging decision at the beginning to have our own, data centers and our own servers and all that, but we want to make sure we give our customers the option to go in public cloud or go in private cloud with Entefy.
Which is key, right? For your clients, the more options you have and the more flexibility they have to manage their own, data and their own IP, I think brings a certain sense of, relief and true ownership, and diminishes a lot of those concerns of overlapping data and, intermingling of information,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Which is what you don't want to have, especially if you have clients that are in related fields, right? If they're competitors, you don't want, that information going back and forth,
Exactly.
because it takes away that competitive edge. So with that said, Brienne, talk a little bit about, the future of career development within this field and what careers are emerging, what pathways exist as we look forward into AI and the various platforms that it will be serving.
I love it. This is a great question. The field is so big and broad that it's growing in so many different directions. One of the sweet spots that I see, aside from being a co-founder of the company, my primary job is to deal with the customers and take their vision, make it a reality when it comes to the actual production delivery, right? To get the applications to them. So one of the things that I'm seeing in working with the data science teams and the engineering teams is there's this little bit of an opportunity between machine learning and software engineering, where if you get a new generation of machine learning engineers that can better equip themselves for back-end development and software, and you get a little bit of software that can do vice versa, there's a production pipeline piece here that's really critical to take state-of-the-art models into core applications that can be used by people every day. One of the reasons I love what I do is because we can take models and make them applicable into software that people can touch and feel and use and gain direct value from, right? A big chunk of our business is focused on R&D and building the best models, but the other piece is to actually get to the application level. So there's a little bit of this gap between these two industries. And I think there's some areas of growth where machine learning and data scientists, they can go very deep in very specific areas, become super robust in computer vision and audio and natural language, and become very specialized there. And then there's this other piece where if they have a good enough foundation in the software side, they can actually begin to take their models into core application development. And if that's not the case, there's a little bit of a gap in the way their models can get into production, right? So there's a little bit of an opportunity there that I see. So just like with software, and later, of course, the internet, we've seen nearly every career and role transform to require at least some level of technical competency in the field. So this is what we're saying on our side. You can either go really deep in one role or go deep there and then go broad in some of these other layers when you take that work into a full pipeline. And this is something we specialize in as a company, and we look for those skills when we make those hires.
So what do you see in the future of those career pathways, Alston?
It's a great question. I think we can expect growth in various technical fields, right? Like software and machine learning, the actual core technical competency. But we at Entefy, we are bullish on the other aspects of the fields as well, like design, right? So from user interfaces to user experiences, rethinking products and product interaction changes when you have intelligent systems that are creating a conversation, genuine conversation with the customer. Product designers are going to be in absolutely high demand because normal consumers don't interact with models, right? They don't interact with terminal systems. In fact, the graphical user interface for PCs proved that, right? So I think for us, it's the lateral fields that are going to see the most of a shift. But of course, software and core machine learning is going to continue to be a huge driving force because the demand, that supply will have to fill the demand, right? And we're already understaffed, I mean.
Absolutely. Right. So for anyone that's listening, and if are there any young people out there listening, what fields do they need to pursue or study or get engaged with to be prepared for the future of AI and, be a part of that career pathway moving forward?
I'm partial to having an even balance between the technical and the social, the non-technical, the social sciences of it all. So I think that kind of future career path and expertise can actually come from both. Studying what you love and practicing what you're good at. Those don't always align. If they do, it's amazing. But if they don't always align, you can often find the intersection of both in this new technical future. But obviously, understanding how systems, what data looks like, just understanding how data has evolved in the last few years. When people talk about big data, small data, data analysis, even if you don't end up becoming a data engineer, understanding data structures and how they work is going to allow you to understand how these applications can even exist when you're discussing and how you can morph in job functions. So that's, to me, that's understanding how data looks and how it moves through a system is a skill no matter what industry you want to go into. And from there, you can fork off into engineering, software and hardware, or you can fork off into design and management and so on. But they both kind of, in this next future, the data future, they both stem from having a good sense of what is the machine seeing. If you know what the machine is seeing, it helps you problem solve to design new products and services. That's
Lovely. And so
my personal thing. Everybody has a different.
that's your what's your take on that, Brienne?
No, I totally agree. And I think, like Alston said, product is an interesting world for us. We spend a lot of time there because you need the technical side and you need the design side to build something that the end consumer or prosumer is going to use, right? They can touch and feel and integrate into their daily life. So I don't want to underplay the importance of design and UX and experience, right? UI, UX, interface and experience when you're creating products. So the main goal is to develop products that benefit the world. And to do that, you need the combination of both. So if you're going to go into technical, maybe try to get an understanding of the other side and vice versa. And I generally find that having the 360 knowledge, at least what we learn at Entefy, is we try to look for that 360 understanding, right? No matter which field you're going in. And if it doesn't have, we don't have it coming in, we train it every day and we grow every day to gain more and more of a 360 perspective.
Beautiful. So, Alston, please share with us what you're most excited about and where you see Entefy going in the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh my gosh, where don't we see ourselves going in 5 to 10 years? That's such a big question. We have so many incredible ideas, and much of it is at the evolution of the market in general. The market and what AI technology is going to develop. I don't think we'll recognize it in 10 years. I think in the more nearer term, it's all about continuing to scale the learning, making the systems learn better, cheaper, and faster, so that different enterprises, different businesses in general. I don't want to keep focusing on the enterprise. It's just they happen to have all the data right now. But as the technology evolves, as Brienne said, the Jarvis of Iron Man in your pocket for free with no ads. That's the ultimate future that I think everybody in this business, whether they want to admit it or not, is secretly in for. Right? We all want to do.
I love it.
And that's,
I love it.
Grail. I don't think that's 10 years away, but if one
it's right around the corner, just like the end of the program. Can you believe it's already done? But thank you so much, God. Brienne and Alston. You were amazing. Thank you for sharing this groundbreaking technology and all the ways the consumers are going to benefit from it. Thank you so much for being with us today. For everyone listening now, look for us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Check us out on scbrtalk.com, and don't forget to download the free live streaming app on Google Play or the Apple App Store. Save the date on Thursday, March 30th. San Antonio Regional Hospital is presenting a State of the Region, an economic analysis and forecast from Manfred Kiel, Chief Economist of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership and Associate Director of Lowe Institute of Political Economy, Roy Day School of Economics and Finance at Claremont McKenna College, taking place at the Ontario Convention Center. Tickets are on sale now, starting at $65 before March 15th. Visit sar.org for details. Don't miss my interview with Dan, who is part owner and president of Pacman. It is provides visually dynamic marketing solutions to the aviation and aerospace industry and other event-related industries. Next week, we will have Nolan Draxtich. She is part of Sotheby's luxury real estate team and the conductor of Lux World TV. She is on the board of Amazing Affluent Hispanic Philanthropies, and I can't wait to introduce her to you next week. Everybody, do not miss it.